everybody, welcome back to part 2 of Let's Get Inky. This time we are going to be playing with the small die of the month from Spellbinders. Now hopefully you have already watched part 1 where I played with the large die, but here is the actual small die kit, and this month of September it's called Hiking Through the Meadows, and it has a really awesome hiking boot and then a bunch of floral elements. So if you've seen some of my videos, I may have mentioned my love for camp. So when I saw this hiking boot, I was super excited. So just like in my last video, we are using the media surface mat from Tonic. I've really enjoyed using this mat. And here I am shaking up some of my Oxide sprays. This is something I used Oxide sprays in my last video. I did not show myself shaking. Sorry if this is making anybody upset by watching the shaking. But you'll see, if you look at the bottom of the bottles, all of that ink should be pulling away from the bottom. That's when you know that you've shaken it enough. You just want to mix up all that pigment and dye ink that's in there. So this background was a background for my last video that I made. And I had mentioned in that last video that I wasn't really loving it, but that I was going to keep playing with it. And so here I am. So here you can see those oxides doing their work with all those different colors coming out. And I really love it for that reason. It's just sometimes you don't even know what colors you're going to get when you use certain oxides. So just like in my last video, I'm just going to keep playing with water and adding more colors. So here I'm coming in with some orange oxide spray. And again, just building up layers. Now this particular, my last video, I had a background where I kind of created a sky, and I was very intentional about that background in terms of, you know, I wanted the sky, I wanted kind of a ground. This one, I wasn't going for anything necessarily specific. And that's the fun thing about playing with these inks. And as Tim Holtz always says, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Now in my case, I get what I get, and then I just keep going and going. But it's just fun playing with these inks, and sometimes it's hard to stop. Even if you see something that you like and you're like, I should stop, you just keep playing and playing. And the great thing about this paper is it just takes the abuse, and it takes all the liquid that you throw at it. So again, I'm just going to continue building up more color and getting deeper colors. And you'll see as I dry this, you'll see that chalky finish from the oxide sprays. And I had mentioned that in my last video, that oxide sprays kind of result in this chalky finish. Here's some black soot oxide spray that I'm adding in just to get things a little bit darker, and then I'll bring in that orange again and the blue. And again, I'm just building up lots of layers and lots of color. And again, I think it's so cool watching oxide sprays dry. Now I'm coming in and I just added water to my mat, and I'm just soaking up some of that color with this plain piece of cardstock. And unlike most cases, I am going to leave this background as is. I thought it just looked really cool, and I will use that at a later time. So now, just for maintenance purposes, I'm cleaning the nozzles on my sprays. And now I'm coming in with my mini ink blending tool, and I think this is Rusty Hinge Distress ink, and I'm just trying to make that corner just a little bit more vibrant. Now, if you're not already familiar with distress oxides versus distress inks are more vibrant. All right, so now I'm coming in with micro glaze, distress micro glaze like I did yesterday. Because I'm using my oxide sprays, I like to use the micro glaze just to seal it. And that way, you know, when you rub it, it doesn't come off on your fingers. All right, let's make some hiking shoes. Now, you know how hiking shoes are usually suede or nubuck material? Well, I wanted to recreate that. So I'm using this flock. Now, usually I use this flock in a laminator. You can use this in a laminator just like you do foil. But I am using it just to die cut. You can just die cut it. So I'm using these two different color blues for my boots. And I'm just going to show you all the other ones that I have. That first one is Tuscan Gold. I have some red. I have green. There's just so many colors of flock, and I have most of them in my stash. Now, another option would have been this velvet paper from Simon Says Stamp. Now, this pack was from the holidays last year, and that was their first pack. And then the second pack has a bunch of different blues. I am going to stick with the flock just because I have so much of it. So we're going to assemble the boot so that brown piece on the bottom is kind of the base, and then I'm putting my little flock piece on top. Now the light blue side, you'll see I'm slowing it down so you can see I'm only gluing it on the very edges, and that is because I am going to actually lace up these shoes just like you would lace up a regular hiking shoe. So I wanted those holes to be loose, and that's why I didn't glue that entire part down. So I will go ahead and do the same with the second side, and then we will be ready to lace. Now, part of the reason why this video is longer is because I am going to keep the lacing in real time. So I just have this thin twine, and I have somehow managed to get it through my needle. And, you know, this is not a stitching die. There is actually a die that creates the laces, but I just thought it would be fun to lace up my boot. So I'm just going to thread it through this first little hole. And I kind of start off slow because I was trying to figure out, you know, what do I want to do with the end of that string? At first I thought I needed to tuck it in, but then I realized, no, I need two sides for my shoestrings. So that's when I realized I just needed to pull it longer and leave that loose. So again, I just kind of had to get my bearings as I'm figuring this out. And trying to figure out how exactly do you lace up a shoe. All right, so now I'm kind of figuring it out. So again, I'm sorry this is slow. I just thought maybe if you wanted to try this with your boot, then you could see how I did it. So now that I have figured out this first part, I think things will go a little bit faster. Now I was trying to be really careful pulling this string through those holes because I didn't want them to rip. All right, but now that I have figured it out, we can go a little bit faster. And, you know, eventually it really was just like putting a shoestring on your shoe. Now, maybe the most difficult part of this was threading my needle. And this is the same for when I use stitching dies. I have those little plastic or metal things that help you thread needles, and they always break. So I kind of fast forwarded through the part where I was struggling to get this through my needle head, but I did end up getting it through. So now we can just quickly lace up this second side. And, you know, it's looking like a real shoelace, right? I just thought it was so cute. All right, so now we are done. It's all laced up. And you can see in the upper left, I laced up a second one. And now I'm just showing you the die that actually comes with the set. So you don't have to do what I just did. You can just cut your laces out of paper. So here I'm just showing you the pieces that come out of that die. Now again, there are several ways to lace up your shoes even with the die pieces. Now I chose to tuck this top piece underneath. And the reason I did that is I wanted it to look like those laces when they come out of, you know, the long piece of the lace. I just really wanted it to look more realistic. So to make that part stay, because you saw I didn't use any glue, I was just kind of tucking it under there. So now I'm just slipping a piece of paper with glue underneath that middle part, and that will keep that piece intact. And then this other large piece I can just glue right on there as you would normally glue something. I'm trying to remember what other small kit I was really kind of weird about. Maybe it was the airplane and the wheels and like what side the wheel should be on. I think that's the CPA coming out in me. I get very analytical and, you know, everything has to make perfect sense to me, which it's card making. It shouldn't make sense, but maybe that's part of the fun for me. So here's this little boot. All right, let's go back to the blue boots. And I have cut out a bunch of floral elements. Now those two leaves are from the large die. These two leaves actually these two are from the large die kit. The ones at the bottom were from the small die kit. So there's leaves in both kits, is my point. And so now we are going to ink up and add detail to these leaves. So I think this was Crackling Campfire Distress ink. And I'm just quickly adding some shading, which it just makes such a difference. And I'll add it to this orange one. All right, so now I have my grip mat. This is my smallest grip mat from Waffle Flower, and it's going to hold these tiny little pieces for me while I ink those up. Now these little leaves, I think I put every color known to man on these little guys. I think I first came in with the Crackling Campfire, then I come in I think with Fired Brick, and then I think I came in with like maybe some yellow. This might be a Rusty Hinge. And maybe Fossilized Amber. I think I threw every color on these little guys. Kind of crazy. All right, I think this was Fired Brick again, so I'm adding it to that leaf. And look how pretty that leaf is. Now, those little tiny leaves that I colored with every single color, that doesn't even matter because I end up changing it anyway. So now I'm coming in, I think this is Walnut Stain, and just adding some dark details to the leaves, just building up some detail. It makes such a difference. So, and I think all of these leaves are so pretty. All right, so now I am gluing on those little leaves that, again, I will end up covering later. All right, so now we're going to move on, and I'm just going to kind of start playing around with what I want my card to look like. And this is kind of when I decided to change the colors of those leaves, because I kept shifting things around. And here's that little sign. This is part of the large die kit, actually, this little sign. And there was another sign that said boo from that large die kit. And there's the little stick that holds the sign. So anyway, as I was playing around with the arrangement of these leaves, that tall branch with all the little individual leaves just kept throwing me off. So I decided to cut those little leaves out of yellow. And here I'm just inking up I think that must be walnut stain again, just adding a little bit of detail. I just felt like all the colors were kind of too similar, so I really wanted that pop of yellow, and I'm really glad that I chose to do that, because I think it made a really big difference in the end. So I've glued that down, that big branch with the yellow pieces, and now I'm gluing this guy down. And when I'm gluing things like this, I really glue from the bottommost element and work my way up. So I think the next thing will be this guy, this little brown leaf. And I think the red leaf, for whatever reason, was causing me a lot of... I just kept shifting it around, and here you'll just see me continue to play with it until I'm happy with it. And, you know, this part can be the most fun part of building the card, or the most crazy part for me. All right, so now I'm gluing down this first boot, because this is going to go underneath that other one. I think I've mentioned this before. When it comes to floral elements like this, there's a fine line between putting too many floral elements or not enough. And this time, I can honestly say, I think I got it right. I really love the elements that I put in these boots. I don't think it was too much. I think it was just right. I love the colors. Here you can see, I'm just trying to keep this little lace down, because I don't want it to come somehow loose. So now I'm putting a little foam tape on it, because I'm going to have to pop this second boot up on foam tape. And you'll see I'm putting some of the foam tape on the card base and some of it on the actual boot. And then I can attach that guy. And by the way, my hiking boots are blue, and I actually have hiking boots and shoes. They're both blue. So this card has me all over it. I love it. And I just think lacing up the boots was kind of just putting everything over the top. All right, let's make a little tag. This is the Doodlebug Great Outdoors Collection. This is a 6x6 paper pad. And this particular paper has all these sayings like the great outdoors, or take a hike, the wonders of nature. So I thought that was perfect. And what's even more perfect is my camp colors are green and yellow. So, and you know, I'm just nuts about my camp. So I'm inking up. I had already cut a tag. This is the Spellbinders tag. And there is my tag. And the little saying is actually from one of the pieces of paper from the Doodlebug pad. It had like little sentiments, so I just cut it out and it was perfect. All right, that is finally it. These were long videos. I thank you so much if you hung in there with me. I hope you learned something, or maybe it's inspired you to pull out your distress sprays. Just like me, I hadn't used them in forever. So I hope you found this inspiring, and I hope you had fun watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.